Hello, and welcome back to the Internet Church of Jesus Christ. My name is Chad Tyndale, and today we're going to talk about how to be a Christian during the holidays, and what it might mean to put the Christ back into Christmas. And the reason this is important is because Christians have done a lot over the past century or so to link Christmas with the birth of Christ, which is fine. It's fine. It's not a big deal, and if you want to celebrate it that way, that's fine. But odds are you have friends who don't care about Jesus' birth. And if you try really hard, it's probably a great opportunity to ruin those friendships, and not so much one to win them over to your side. Because that's a battle they've likely already decided, and if you're on the side that they don't like, then arguing with them really isn't going to change that. But that doesn't mean that the battle is lost. So let's talk a little bit about how this conversation typically goes. Firstly, the well-established Christian argues that Christmas is literally about the time when Jesus Christ was born, and further, that people who don't believe in Jesus have no reason to celebrate. The filthy non-believer argues, I don't believe in anything, which means I can celebrate anything I want without fear of repercussions from the gods I don't believe in. Or maybe you have one of those clever pagan friends who likes to talk about the origins of all our Christmas traditions. Did you know that the Christmas tree is a pagan tradition? As is the Yule log, mistletoe, and... Yes, we know, we're not stupid. Christianity killed those religions and took their things. That's not exactly a point in their favor. But any comeback is just going to ostracize those non-believers even further than they already are. The quickest way to make someone defend themselves is to attack them. That's a good line. I wonder who said that originally. So if you're making non-believers feel attacked, then you are doing Christianity wrong. You're pushing away those who really need an example of good Christians. But don't take my word for it. Let's see what the man had to say. But before we begin, some context. Jesus is referring to believers as sheep, so in this analogy, other animals just means non-believers, not the current negative connotations of those animals. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. You don't need to push Christianity. You cannot win a battle for Team Jesus. Christ doesn't need you to defend him. He needs you to stop pushing away people that he wants on his side. He needs you to be supportive of those people. Like a city on a hill, the light of the world that shines well, doesn't look like a jerk in front of his non-believer friends, and draws people in. Or as Jesus might say, in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. So in lieu of the righteous struggle, I'd suggest being a light that draws people in, rather than one that wins meaningless battles. My typical response is, it's true that Christians have adopted many of the traditions of the various religions they've conquered over the years. Especially the parties. We love parties. I only wish we'd left more religions around, so that way there'd be even more parties to celebrate. And this is why it makes absolutely no sense to shun the phrase happy holidays. Holidays isn't a word meaning anything but Christmas. Holidays doesn't refer to Christmas exclusively. Instead, it's the plural of the word holiday, meaning more than one. Yes, Christmas is in December. But so is New Year's Eve. So is the first day of winter. And Hanukkah, I think. I still have to look it up every year. But the fact that anyone is saying happy holidays at all is including Christmas in that list. They're not telling you to not have a happy Christmas. The opposite of that, in fact. And what do you win by being mad at people saying happy holidays? Do you think God goes, yeah, show those people I love how disliked they are by the people who support me? Or do you think he'd much rather you just thank them and wish them the same? I don't know what Bible you're reading if you think the first one, but I'm pretty sure he'd prefer you not making his children miserable. But let's see what the man did when someone celebrated something that wasn't him. On the third day, there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus also was invited to the wedding with his disciples. So there's a celebration that isn't about Jesus. And Jesus goes. He doesn't get indignant about it. He just goes. And you might find that a silly analogy, but is it any different than celebrating Hanukkah? Which is a festival of lights celebrating the rededication of a temple. So not exactly worshiping a pagan god there. What about Kwanzaa? Celebrating African American culture? Is Jesus really pissed about that one? And New Year's. Does Jesus get mad that according to the Gregorian calendar, that number on the end of all the forms you sign goes up by 1? We know that Jesus was kind of indifferent about marriage in general. But not only does Jesus go to celebrate someone's wedding, Jesus brings the booze. Jesus brings the booze t-shirt, now available in the merch store. Jesus comes and sits at this wedding, not the cherished guest of honor, but just a guy attending a wedding. And yet centuries later we're pricks about both alcohol and celebrations that aren't about Jesus? But I like to party, so I celebrate birthdays and weddings. Christmas, Hanukkah, solstice, whatever. But I never bring alcohol to the party. Because Jesus brings the booze. Jesus brings the booze. While we're on the subject of putting the Christ in Christmas, I have a question that I always want to ask. What about Jesus' birth is special at all to Christians? When I hear people tell the story of Jesus' birth, I always wonder why Jesus is barely in it. He certainly doesn't do anything. He's a baby. That story is about Jesus' parents and about the guests they invited to his bris. He was Jewish. Somebody had to do it. Think about that Christmas morning. But the Christmas story leaves off the 90% of Jesus' life that's so much more important. The part where he tells humans how to be good humans. We all ascribe this meaning to it. Peace on earth, goodwill toward men. But Jesus himself says this so much better than the legend ever does. If you love Jesus, feed his sheep. I just find it weird that Jesus can live his whole life being perfect and performing miracles. And modern Christians tend to ignore all of that and focus on the two things he did that everyone does: being born and dying. The much more important part is the parts in between where he teaches you how to live your life. But it's not the secular world that's forgotten to put the Christ in Christmas. It's the Christians. If you want to put the Christ in Christmas, start by selling all of your worldly possessions and giving the money to the poor. I know someone poor. He lives in this very apartment. But if you want to put the Christ in Christmas, try finding someone in need and go help them and not showing anyone that you're doing it. Try introspection to see what planks in your eye can be removed. Try simply feeding Jesus' sheep. Maybe literally with actual food. Maybe giving them gas money or rent money. Take care of Jesus' people. That is putting the Christ into Christmas. What isn't is forcing your belief on people who don't care and will just not like you or any of the causes you stand for. I assure you, Jesus doesn't want that. So let's come up with some new traditions that I think Jesus would be on board with. Step 1, rig up the water fountains at work to dispense wine. Jesus brings the booze. I'm kidding. How about buying a really nice gift for a child? Call your local public school and say, I have a gift for a child in need, and I want you to make sure they get it for Christmas. Give it to the school and let the school deliver it. Then, and here's the important part, don't tell anyone. Christmas morning, think about the child opening your gift, and have a prayer where you wish more good things for the child. I love charity, but I don't like charities. They tend to distance you from the act of giving. So I highly encourage you to go out and find people to give to directly. One of the best gifts you can give financially impoverished people is a flu shot. Odds are they can't afford one, but also can't afford to miss work. But seek out people in need. Jesus did, and it worked out well for him. Except that one time. But if I were to pick a tradition to start with, it's that, giving. Not just to people you love, but to strangers, and maybe even enemies. People who actively don't like you. Building bridges could be your new Christmas tradition. And finally, a big thing you can do on Christmas is just to celebrate it big. Make it big for you, your family, and everyone who sees you. Christmas is a time for love, so it just makes sense to spread that love to as many people as possible. Probably my favorite thing about Christmas is just driving around and seeing how many people put up lights. Like we're all joining together to do a really big project. And that project is going to help some small child whose parents can't afford to take him around to a really expensive light show. So instead they just drive around looking at the lights in people's neighborhoods. I was that child. And so people who can decorate and do are some of my favorite people. Because to me, they all worked together to make my Christmas special. And I would highly encourage you to do the same. And that's going to bring us to today's Daily Praise, the song I'll be listening to all this week, and I hope you listen to it as well. The link will be in the description. I hope you enjoy it, sing it, praise with it, at least once. And I hope you'll join us regularly here at the Internet Church of Jesus by hitting the subscribe button. You know the way to subscribe is by hitting a button, so why do I have to tell you to hit the button? I hope you'll join us regularly here at the Internet Church of Jesus by subscribing. Join the discussion in the comments, leave suggestions, prayers, requests. If you like the service this week, you can let me know by hitting the like button. I hope you pray like God is watching, and I'll see you next week.